My name is Cassia. I was a senior in college, and my major was animal science. It sounds more specialized than it is. Mostly it was just a lot of late-night labs and chemistry. But it did make me the perfect candidate for a job at the local county animal shelter. It wasn't a great job. The pay was minimum wage, and it was emotionally draining, but it let me work really flexible, odd hours. This was crucial because my final semester was an absolute nightmare. The coursework isn't the important part of the story. What is important is that I was barely sleeping. Between studying for my final exams and trying to finish my senior project, I was living on lukewarm coffee and 20-minute power naps. I was basically nocturnal. That's why I'd volunteered to cover the overnight shift for a week when the main nighttime employee had a family emergency. It was supposed to be easy. Just sit at the front desk from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., study, and check on the animals twice. It should go without saying that my brain was complete mush during this period. I was jumpy and exhausted. I don't even feel like I was a real person. It was like I was just this walking zombie, trying to get to graduation. One night, I think it was a Tuesday, I was deep into my notes at the front desk. It was probably around 3 a.m. I was trying to memorize some complex metabolic pathway when I realized the dogs in the main kennel wing were quiet. Way too quiet. Usually, at least one of them is whimpering or pacing. A really weird, cold feeling washed over me. I decided to do my walkthrough a little earlier than scheduled. The main kennel wing was fine. Just a lot of sleeping dogs. The cat room was silent as usual, but as I got near the back utility door, the one that leads to the outdoor intake kennels, I heard something. It wasn't scratching. It was a wet sound, like a lapping. That's the only way I can describe it. We have an after-hours drop-off kennel out there, which is really just a 10x10 chain-link run where people can leave strays they find at night. My first thought was that someone had dropped off a big dog, and it was just getting a drink from the big gravity-fed water bowl. But the sound was wrong. It wasn't the neat, quick lapping of a dog. It was a messy, heavy sound, like something was shoveling the water, not drinking it. I was annoyed mostly. I was exhausted and really didn't want to deal with processing a new likely scared animal. But it was my job. I grabbed the heavy-duty clip leash we used for the pit bulls, more out of habit than any real fear, and unlocked the heavy steel door. The door opens onto a small concrete pad, and the drop-off kennel is right there, maybe 5 feet away. It was pitch black outside. I reached over and hit the big silver switch for the exterior floodlight. I almost dropped the leash. There, crouched on all fours inside the kennel, was a person. He was hunched over the stainless steel water bowl, his face in it, lapping at the water. He was wearing what looked like a t-shirt and jeans, but they were so caked in mud and filth, they just looked like dark rags. And he was soaking wet, as if he'd just climbed out of the drainage marsh behind the shelter property. He froze the instant the light hit him. I just stood there. I couldn't even make a sound. He slowly lifted his head, water dripping from his chin. He looked right at me, but his expression didn't change at all. It was like I had just turned on a light in an empty room and he just happened to be in it. This low sound came out of his throat, a rattling, guttural hiss. I tried to back up, but my feet felt like they were glued to the concrete. He lunged, not at me, but at the kennel gate, slamming his shoulder into the chain link with a clang that echoed off the brick. The gate was only secured by a simple slide latch on my side. He started rattling it, grunting. I fumbled for my phone in my back pocket. My hands were shaking so badly I kept messing up the swipe pattern to unlock it. The man wasn't just shaking the gate anymore. He was pulling at it. He got his fingers through the chain link and was clawing at the metal latch itself. I didn't know it was possible for someone to be that strong. He was bending the steel bracket. I finally got my phone unlocked and was trying to dial 911 when the latch popped. The gate swung open with a high-pitched screech, and I let out a scream I couldn't help. I just turned and bolted, diving back through the steel door and slamming it shut. I hit the deadbolt lock just as his entire body weight slammed into the other side. The whole door frame shuddered. I scrambled backwards, falling over a bag of wood shavings. And then I heard it. Scratching. He was scratching at the door, right where the deadbolt was, making this horrible, high-pitched scraping sound. I was on the phone with the 911 operator, whispering, crying. I couldn't even form a proper sentence. The scratching finally stopped. I stayed huddled in that hallway for what felt like an hour. It was probably only 10 minutes. The sound of the sirens was the best thing I've ever heard in my life. I'll fast forward through the rest. Cops cleared the outside area with their flashlights. The man was gone. All they found was the kennel gate wide open, the water bowl kicked over. They searched the marshy area behind the building but said it was impossible to track anyone in there at night. They insisted it was probably just a homeless person, maybe high on something, but that's not what I saw. It didn't explain the strength or the sound he made. My boss showed up at 4 a.m., and after seeing the door, she told me to go home. She was the one who had to file the report. She installed a heavy-duty security bar on that door the very next day. I still have no real explanation for what happened, who he was, why he was in that kennel, or what he would have done if he had caught me. Those are just a few of the questions about that night that I know will never have an answer. My family's house is an old farmhouse, built in the 1920s. We've renovated most of it, but it still has a lot of quirks. My parents love the character, which is mostly just a nice way of saying things are drafty and make a lot of noise. As it pertains to this story, there's really only one detail you need to know about the layout. You know how some old houses have those external basement entrances, the slanted wooden doors in the yard? We have one. It's on the side of the house, half hidden by some overgrown bushes. It's called a bulkhead, and it leads down a set of concrete steps to the unfinished part of our basement. My bedroom is on the first floor, and the floor of my room is directly above that part of the cellar. This is all to say that if someone were down there, I would be right on top of them. I've always had this irrational fear of it. My dad always told me it was secure. The heavy wooden doors lock from the outside with a thick steel hasp and a padlock, and the interior door that leads to the finished part of the house has a deadbolt. What I'm about to tell you happened last spring. My parents were in Florida for their anniversary, and I was house-sitting for the week. I wasn't really alone. I had my dog Buster, a 90-pound golden retriever who is normally very quiet and lazy. The first few nights were totally fine. I just watched movies, ordered pizza, and let Buster sleep on the foot of my bed, which he's normally not allowed to do. I'm not a party person, and our house is pretty far from my friends, so I was happy to just have a quiet week. The third night was when it happened. It was probably around 2 a.m. I was fast asleep, and so was Buster. Or at least, I thought he was. I woke up to a strange feeling, and when I opened my eyes, I saw Buster was sitting straight up at the edge of the bed. He was completely stiff, staring at the floor. I could hear him making this low, rumbling growl deep in his chest. I shushed him, figuring he'd heard a raccoon or a deer outside, but he didn't stop. That alarmed me. He only ever growled like that if a delivery driver came right up to the door. I told him to be quiet, and I listened. A sound from outside. It sounded like it was coming from the side of the house, from where the bulkhead was. My blood ran cold. I listened for another minute and heard it again, followed by a heavy thud. It sounded like one of the heavy wooden doors being dropped shut. My first thought was that the wind had blown it open, even though I was pretty sure my dad kept it padlocked. Still, animal or not, hearing noises from that specific spot is creepy, especially when you're the only one home. I told Buster to stay, telling him I was just going to check the windows. I calmly walked out of my room and into the kitchen. The kitchen has the interior door that leads down to the basement. I flicked on the switch for the outside floodlight which illuminates that whole side of the yard. I peered through the kitchen window, but I couldn't see the bulkhead doors clearly because of the angle in the bushes. So reluctantly, I unlatched the back door and stepped out onto the patio, hoping my presence would be enough to scare off whatever was out there. I stood on the cold concrete for a few seconds, waiting to hear rustling in the bushes or see an animal run across the grass, but nothing happened. Even the scraping sound had stopped. I figured maybe it really was just the wind, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I clicked on my phone flashlight and started walking around the side of the house. As I got closer, I could see the bulkhead. Both wooden doors were closed. But sitting on the grass next to it was the heavy padlock and hasp, which had clearly been torn or pried off the wood. I groaned, thinking some teenagers had vandalized it. I should mention that I didn't see anyone out there, so I figured they'd already run off. Just to be completely sure, I shined my flashlight all around the bushes, but there was nothing. That confirmed it. Without much more thought, I just picked up the broken lock. I didn't want to go down there in the dark, so I just went back inside and made sure the interior basement door was deadbolted. Then I went back to bed. Buster was still on edge, standing by the bedroom door, but I managed to coax him back onto the bed. I was in that in-between phase, half asleep but still aware, when Buster shot up again. And that's when I heard it. A noise. Not from outside. It was coming from under me. A dull dragging sound, like a heavy sack of something being pulled across the concrete floor right below my room. I was convinced I was dreaming, but Buster was staring at the floor, and the hair on his back was standing straight up. Heavy, slow footsteps on the concrete floor, moving from under my room toward the interior door. I forced myself out of bed, grabbed Buster by the collar and ran out of the room. I grabbed my phone and locked us both in the upstairs guest bathroom. As I was dialing 911, I could hear Buster growling and scratching at the bathroom door, facing the hallway. I was whispering to the operator, telling them someone was in my basement. And then I heard it. The knob on the kitchen basement door. It jiggled, and then a bang, as if someone had thrown their shoulder against it. The cops showed up a little over 20 minutes later. I stayed locked in the bathroom the entire time. When the police finally arrived, I let them in the front door and told them everything. They did a full sweep. The deadbolt on the kitchen to basement door was still locked. They went outside and found the bulkhead doors still closed, just as I'd left them. They went down into the basement with their flashlights. When they came back up, they told me the basement was clear, but one of them pulled me aside. He said there was no one down there now, but someone had definitely been there. The interior door at the bottom of the steps, the wood around the deadbolt was all splintered, like someone had been trying to kick it in from the cellar side. They also found a pile of cigarette butts and some empty water bottles in the corner behind the furnace. It looked like someone had been camping out down there, trying to get into the main house. They told me to call if I saw anything else, then left. Nothing else happened that week. When my parents got home, I told them. My dad was furious, mostly about the broken lock in the door frame. He immediately went to Home Depot and bought a new steel-plated door for the interior entrance and a heavy-duty bar for the bulkhead. My mom was just quiet. I think it scared her more than she let on. I tried to just forget about it. I mean, the person was gone. But I'm writing this because even now, years later, Buster won't go near the kitchen. He just stands at the entrance to the hallway and stares at the basement door. If I try to pull him in, he whines and digs his claws into the floor. I'm an assistant manager at one of those big retail clothing stores. It's not the worst job, but the hours are brutal. I'm the one who closes, so I'm often not leaving the mall until well after 10 p.m. By the time I get home, I'm just completely drained. I usually just crash the second I get in the door. I was walking to my car one night, probably around 10:30 p.m. It was a Tuesday. It was nice to be heading home. As I was walking through the parking garage, I realized I was probably the last one on my level. There's a specific parking garage I use that connects to the mall. It's usually my first choice since it's so close to the employee exit. I'm not one to get spooked easily. I've done this walk 100 times. It's obviously well lit, and I figured I was safe. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but it was definitely after 10:30 by the time I got to the 3rd level. The garage was almost completely empty, which I was actually kind of happy about. As I was walking, I found myself staring off into the distance, just ready to get home. That's when I noticed something. There was an older, dark green sedan parked in a spot right by the stairwell. Its parking lights were on, but the engine was off. The mall itself had been closed for 30 minutes, so it didn't make sense for a car to be waiting there. We have an employee-designated area on the roof, so it couldn't have been one of them. I figured it was maybe just someone waiting to pick up another employee, which it probably was. It was just an odd sight, to be completely honest. I got to my car, got in, and locked the doors. I didn't want to go home just yet, but I also didn't want to just sit there. I had a pounding headache and realized I'd forgotten to pick up my prescription from the pharmacy. I live in a pretty suburban area, so there's not a lot of options. But I knew the 24-hour Walgreens about 10 minutes away would be open. It's situated in a small, standalone strip mall, and it's essentially just that one store. The kicker is that it's on the way home, just a small detour. I actually hadn't been there in a while because I just get my stuff delivered, but I'd run out and needed it. When I got to the Walgreens parking lot, it was completely empty, save for one employee's car parked right by the front door. I say parking lot, but it was really just a dozen spots right in front of the store. Like I said, the area was dead. Before I could even turn off the engine, I saw headlights pull in off the main road. That was unsettling enough on its own. Who else would be here at 11 p.m.? And then I realized what I was looking at. It was that same dark green sedan from the parking garage. I was 100% certain of it. It parked a few spots away from me, and the engine cut off. I felt the unease start to pour in. What were the odds of that happening naturally? Had they followed me? My window was partially rolled down, and as far as I could tell, there was no music coming from that car. After nothing happened for a good minute or so, my fear started to fade. They were probably doing the same thing I was, just picking up medicine. It's a 24-hour pharmacy, but I was just so weirded out. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I stayed in my car, just watching that sedan. There was no way I was going in there alone, not with that car sitting there. I decided to call my roommate Alex. I figured he'd be asleep, and if he didn't answer, I'd just forget the prescription and head straight home. To my surprise, he picked up on the 3rd ring. He said he was just up watching a movie. I convinced him to swing by. He was down. He said he'd be there in 10. While I waited, I kept my eyes on the sedan. It still hadn't moved. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. When Alex finally pulled his car into the lot, I felt a lot better. We both got out of our cars and started walking toward the entrance. As we got to the curb, I looked back over my shoulder one last time. The sedan was still there, but I saw the driver's side door open. A man stepped out. He just stood there for a few seconds, looking at us. He wasn't even talking, just watching. It was freaky. I nudged Alex, who realized what I was looking at. Before he could see us, we continued walking into the store. Alarm bells were going off in my head, but Alex didn't seem that concerned. He told me the guy was probably just stretching his legs. We kept walking, and by the time we got to the pharmacy counter, the store was enough to take my mind off things. We always joked about how weird these stores are late at night. We stood there talking and waiting. It was nice, but that sense of calm was broken just a few seconds later. We heard the automatic door slide open. We turned around to see the guy from the car walking towards us. He was acting casual enough, and which definitely calmed my nerves a little. Instead of going to an aisle, though, he walked right up to the pharmacy line, like he wanted to talk. He was a big guy, wearing a heavy jacket despite it being a warm night. He had this weird, blank look on his face. He flashed half a smile before asking us if the pharmacy was still open. We both said yes, and he just nodded. My curiosity got the better of me, and I blurted out a question about seeing him at the mall garage. That half smile, he had disappeared. His whole demeanor changed, and he just stared at me, almost like he was trying to figure out how I knew that. He didn't say anything for an uncomfortably long time. That's when I remembered that his car had tinted windows. I hadn't been able to see if he was alone. At that point, I was fully prepared to run. I knew Alex was thinking the same thing. Finally, the guy just grunted and said he was waiting for a friend. While that definitely didn't calm me down, something about this situation was terribly off. I could tell Alex felt the same. We decided it was time to go. As we started walking towards the exit, Alex stopped and pointed out the window. I followed his gaze and saw a second guy, half hidden in the darkness by the side of the building. He was holding something, but I couldn't make out what it was. I felt my heart start racing. The moment he saw us looking, he started walking toward the door. That's when we ran. We bolted out the automatic doors, glancing back to see the guy from inside chasing us, with the other guy close behind. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I could hear their footsteps hitting the pavement, but I didn't look back again. We finally made it to Alex's car, jumped in, and he floored it out of there. As I was speeding away, I could see those guys rushing to get in their car. I didn't feel comfortable driving home out of fear that I'd be leading them right to my apartment. I told Alex we should just go to the police station. We had a decent head start on them, and I don't think we were followed. But I wasn't taking any chances. When Alex and I got to the station, we were still in shock about what the hell just happened. I don't know if they were trying to rob us, or worse. I didn't know what to think. Alex showed me his phone and said he had snuck a picture of the sedan's license plate while we were in the store. He gave it to the police, but I wasn't sure what they could even do with it. I had to leave my car there overnight. The next day, we got a call from a detective. What he told us next made my stomach drop. Apparently, that car had been reported stolen 3 days earlier. It was linked to a string of armed robberies in the area, specifically targeting people who were alone late at night. He said the guy with the jacket matched the description of the suspect. He didn't take it well when we mentioned the second guy. He said they were probably just waiting in the garage for someone, and I was just the unlucky one they picked. I had led them to a quieter, more isolated spot. I have no idea why they picked me. Maybe they just saw a woman leaving the mall alone and thought I was an easy target. The detective said if Alex hadn't shown up, it probably would have been a very different story. The police have my car's description now, and I had to borrow Alex's for a week just in case they were watching my apartment. It's been over a week, and I haven't been able to walk through that parking garage. I've been parking on the other side of the mall and asking security to walk me to my car. I just hope they're caught before they actually hurt someone.